Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari's visit to the United States of America has reinforced relations between Nigeria and the United States. President Buhari and Donald Trump had previously met at the White House in September 2017 alongside select African leaders. This visit, talking about the one in 2018, will be the second. Discussions centered on ways to enhance strategic partnership and advance shared priorities between the United States and Nigeria, promoting economic growth and reforms, fighting terrorism, other threats to peace and security, building on Nigeria's role as a democratic leader in Africa were the core focal areas. However, the relationship of the United States with Nigeria is deep and strong, and Nigerian economic growth and security and leadership in Africa will advance mutual prosperity between the two big nations in the world. That will be the focus on our conversation on diplomatic ties today. Chudi Wazorike is my guest on the program. He is a professor of political comparative sociology, former member of the House of Representatives in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, currently visiting professor to the Nigerian Institute of Legislative Studies, and he is also the author of the book Instrumental Pan-Africanism. That will be the focus of the program today. Nigeria's president visits to the United States of America. But before then, let's take a listen to this report by Adebola Buxton Sunday on a periscope of what the relations has been between Nigeria and the United States of America.
Nigeria and the United States, no doubt, are the giants in their continents. The two countries are members of the same international organizations, including the United Nations, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and World Trade Organization. United States is rated the largest foreign investor in Nigeria, with U.S. foreign direct investment concentrated largely in petroleum, mining, and trade. On the other hand, U.S. imports from Nigeria include cocoa, rubber, and food extracts. United States and Nigeria have deep and strong ties, reinforced in the just concluded Nigeria-United States Binational Commission meeting held in Abuja last year. In 2016, Nigeria and the U.S. signed a bilateral trade and investment framework agreement.
We know that the requirements for export into America are very stringent. Nigeria has not been able to meet those stringent conditions, but we tend to see a little bit of flourishing.
Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo believes that Nigeria can tap into other areas of benefits from the U.S.
If you listen to what Bill Gates had to say, his whole talk, as it were, when it visited Nigeria was on how we can build the skills of the future. I think that's an area we can tap into what Bill Gates talked about. How can America provide more skills?
Our president is the first African president to be received in the White House.
Ambassador Ayo Adigun is a diplomat and former Nigeria ambassador to Liberia. He described President Buhari's meeting with President Trump as reassuring and from all fronts, applause to Nigeria.
Now, Donald Trump went ahead. He stepped in. I don't think he sees Nigeria as culpable. Now he's going to sell for Tucano combat aircraft. That is $496 million aircraft. With this aircraft, the capacity for surveillance and attack on the Boko Haram terrorists are further enhanced. In Africa, Nigeria is very important, a large market, and it has potential for business. So we want more. Don't be surprised that Donald Trump may visit Nigeria before the end of this administration first.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
Given developments so far, what will you say is your analysis of Mr. President's visit to the United States in 2018?
Well, first of all, I think this will be one of the more successful diplomatic forays by a Nigerian president in recent times. It's an all-round success in many ways. The president was very well received. President Trump was at his best in many ways, and President Buhari also, in terms of his presentation and articulation of the issues that concern us vis-a-vis America, was right on target. So I was impressed. It doesn't mean we can pick holes here and there, but this is one of the few things, or few events of such nature that I think went fairly well as choreographed.
What would you say is the best so far?
Well, because I've watched others in a long time. You know, one of the very good ones was when Obasanjo was there during the Bush era and so on. But this went very well, I would say. No major hiccups, nothing seriously forgotten. And we focus on security, trade, and agro-industry, as well as other areas that concern us. So it was very, very focused, actually. And I liked the way the president also, that's our president, also handled the questions. Fair enough.
Nigeria is a valued partner and a good friend. I look forward to working closely with you to deepen our cooperation and forge an even closer partnership. The United States is committed to working alongside Nigeria as we seek a future of strength, prosperity, and peace for both of our countries. President Buhari has also taken several steps to fight corruption and improve the Nigerian business climate. I especially want to thank President Buhari for Nigeria's partnership and leadership in the fight against terrorism. He's been a real leader. Nigeria was one of the first African nations to join the coalition to defeat ISIS. And Nigerian forces are currently leading regional efforts against ISIS in West Africa and doing very well, as we have. Nigeria is also leading African nations in the fight against Boko Haram and another ruthless jihadist terrorist group. We're also helping our Nigerian partners by facilitating intelligence, cooperation, and providing training and military equipment to Nigerian forces. For example, we recently sold Nigeria 12 U.S. 829 Super Katana aircraft. It's great aircraft. In the first ever sale of American military equipment to Nigeria. These new aircraft will improve Nigeria's ability to target terrorists and protect civilians.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
Okay, a lot of persons were surprised at the ambience from the United States president, where he more or less was soliciting beyond the United States position for Nigeria, in support of Nigeria. He was more or less soliciting support from other nations of the world to back up what the United States was doing for Nigeria currently. Yes. It was a surprise to me. Was it a surprise to you too?
Well, you know, I would say that, you know, Donald Trump is maturing while in office. You know, the campaign rhetoric and the off-the-cuff informal way he's been running things and so on, clearly has not always worked. And what we're seeing is a new Donald Trump coming, you know, meeting the wider world, seeing that everything is not just America first, and so on. But there are other corners, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Africa, and that reflects a growing maturity, I would say. It did not surprise me per se, because we expect this kind of curve. When the president comes in, they're coming with everything from the campaign and so on. But after 1 year, 2 years, they begin to show some respect and some understanding, if they want to. of other people. So it's good that this is happening on the watch of President Buhari, but that's what is going on there.
Okay, now, I had a chat with somebody before, ahead of the visit,
Sure.
and I prospected that a lot of Nigerians expect a huge harvest from this visit. And what prospects do you have from this direction?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a good visit, as I said, in the sense that unlike what we've seen in London, the Commonwealth and so on, you know, this was very businesslike and went straight to the point. Very clearly, the Tucano aircraft, for instance, as well as other specific items, more importantly, the fact that America is willing to engage with us in this fight against terrorism, because you have to understand that the fight against terrorism is not just the war with this ragtag band. You know, it's a larger issue in the Sahel. It's a larger issue in the Lake Chad Basin and so on that can lead to even more disasters down the line. And their agreement to work with Nigeria in a more robust manner on this is welcome. Nigerians have always liked America, and whenever it is that we're able to find common ground, is a fairly good thing. I would also say that the emphasis on agro-industry and some of the business deals and negotiations that may well be taking place even as we speak right now, they're all in the right direction. If Nigeria wishes to use an agro-industry strategy to industrialize, it's been done before. Okay, you know, Germany, Japan, and so on, that's how they also go through and so on. And America has one of the best experiences in agro-industry. I think their technology may be a little too high, even for our own agricultural revolution, but we have to engage at some point and see what happens.
Okay, Nigeria just assumed the presidency of the ICC, and Nigeria just assumed the chairmanship of the AU Peace and Security Commission. And Mr. President is just visiting the United States, and he is the ambassador of anti-corruption for Africa.
Yes.
Is it a coincidence?
Not a
Is that a good mileage for us? Is that a good riddance?
I think those are good mileages. You know, Nigeria is on top of its game in a way. It's always been a potential important country. You know, but some of these recognitions, whether it's in China, whether it's in Britain, whether it's in France, but especially in America, which is still the most indispensable nation in the world for now. These things are wonderfully important. We need to see our president standing side by side with the American president, with the Russian president, and so on and so forth. You know, with world leaders. Nigeria shines. Whether we can sustain it is a whole different thing. But very clearly, this is a very good moment, and I want to acknowledge that actually.
Okay, imagine at the end of this meeting with the U.S. president, Nigeria just finished a binational commission meeting in 2017,
Yes.
and a couple of issues will arrive with timelines.
Yes.
Now, a trade mission is activated from the United States. Are we ready for it? Or how do we adapt or assimilate them when they come?
Well,
I'm thinking proactively now.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the sort of thing that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, for instance, Minister of Finance, for instance, and especially the Minister of Agriculture ought to be prepared for. I think clearly that the involvement of the Chamber of Commerce, the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, and the various chambers of commerce is extremely important because these people are looking for trade. And trade is not with government. It is actually with individual companies. That's where the Chamber of Commerce, the Elimelus and Dangotes and Denugas and all the other people who do big things on the continent, this is their own country now. This is where they can come in. Even when we speak of agro-industry, there are some decrepit areas in terms of some of the crops, some of the plants and plantations that sustain this country once. Whether this be cotton, whether this be, the soil is still there, whether this be cocoa. But it is huge investment. And very clear, some of the moguls in Nigeria can make it useful by going into partnership with these American trade mission attendees and so on. So a lot can happen. So in other words, for the first time, Africa is being spoken to not in terms of foreign aid, but in terms of trade. And that itself is a very good thing.
Okay, Nigeria happens to be a democratic country and a huge one in Africa. And that was one of the focal areas Nigeria President Donald Trump was going to have in the United States. What do you make of this?
Well, you know, human rights, good governance, extremely important. Democracy is the foundation to progress, the way we understand it. You know, we've tried dictatorship, we've tried war, we've tried all kinds of things. You know, those things basically haven't helped us much. But once you have a society based on freedom, a society based on good governance, based on human rights, based on mutual respect, based on live and let live, you know, you grow stronger that way. Once you have a global economy based on free trade, for instance, and the protocols of mutuality, you grow richer, as a matter of fact. So we have a situation where if we don't have good governance and democracy and human rights observance in Nigeria, we're retrogressing. So it's wonderful that the two presidents spoke of their commitment to human rights and rule of law. As a matter of fact, I've always believed that the problems could be simplified into a matter of rule of law. If everybody obeys the law, there will be less problems. So the question is, how do we come to that stage? And I would say that the inability of the judiciary and the whole political system to implement laws and obey rules, for instance, has been the bane. So there is a learning curve. America did not become America overnight. But the point is, however, is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We've seen how it can be done.
I thank the United States government very much for cooperation we have received in our effort to recover stolen funds. Our two governments have put the machinery in place for their respective attorney generals to collaborate in ensuring the return to Nigeria of over 500 million United States dollars of looted funds siphoned away in banks around the world. In this connection, we congratulate the United States government on launching a Kleptocracy Asset Recovery Initiative, which was spearheaded by the United States Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture and Money Laundering. We hoped that we could continue to count on United States support in this area. The government of Nigeria remains. The government is taking necessary steps to promote the peaceful coexistence of herdsmen and farmers by focusing on boosting security and enforcing legislation that will guarantee borders and farmers access to land. I extend sincere congratulations to President Trump and his government on the impressive performance of the United States economy under his watch. Our aim is to diversify our own economy by focusing on agriculture and food security, power and infrastructure. We have cut the importation of rice by 90%, thereby saving a significant amount of money. We very much welcome increased United States investment in Nigerian economy, especially the non-oil sector.
Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.
He was very emphatic about one area. He said, we are going to supply you this to fight insecurity in Nigeria. We hope and believe that all facets in Nigeria, I'm quoting the US President now, will benefit from it. And he went on to say the Muslim community and the Christian community. Why this emphasis?
Yes, because he's been briefed on some of the issues that face us in Nigeria today. You know, Nigeria is a multi-civilizational country. Part of the problem we've always had is that people don't look at it in the cerebral fashion. They look at it as an emporium that is just created by the British and we just inherited it. You know, but this is bringing together diverse civilizations into one. It's not going to be conflict-free. But what is important is that Nigeria would always need statesmen who can stand above that. And it's interesting that Donald Trump stressed that. You're a country that is both Muslim and Christian. You're a country that ought to be inclusive. You know, that's why we have 6 zones, for instance, politically, as we practice in National Assembly and elsewhere. And that means whatever you do, make sure that all zones and everyone is included. So it's a piece of advice which we ourselves know very well, but it's interesting to hear him say it, and that's very good too.
Well, we are very much aware that Nigerians are doing a lot in the United States, health and other sectors.
Yes.
Now, one of the core concerns of this meeting was shared priorities shared priorities between Nigeria and the United States. Yes. Will it be reinforced, or where are we heading to with it? Well, given the outcome of the visit so far.
Yes. Well, Nigeria is the one most in need to develop, to leapfrog from this sort of LA mercantile, low agrarian type of stage towards the industrial phase, mostly the post-industrial. So what you have is a situation where Nigerians have to define their priorities and let their counterparts in America know exactly what it is that we want. But one area we have a good advantage, not even a comparative advantage as such, but a good advantage is in the human capital, human capacity, and so on. As you mentioned, the Nigerian diaspora has done remarkably well. They've shown clearly that the home country wants them. They are there, ready, and able, and can really move us to the next stage. You see, we live in this kind of quasi-feudal, round the block kind of culture that can do with a lot of improvement and be sharpened and so on. We're good people. There's nothing wrong with the human element. It's just simply the society, the culture. But I would say that very clearly in terms of the question, in terms of his comment, if we're looking at the diaspora, there's a lot of diamond that can be mined from our doctors, our scholars, our business people, lawyers, and so on.
Very last leg on these questions. Will you say with this outing, Nigeria has more or less sustained and reinforced its big brotherly role in Africa?
I think it really reinforced in a very big and dramatic way the fact that Nigeria is numero uno, the #1 country in Africa. It is the biggest economy. It has the largest population. Clearly has the largest cultural figures, as a matter of fact. What else? We tend to forget about cultural diplomacy, but this is also part of our advantage, and so on. Cultural capital in terms of entertainers, writers, and so on and so forth. It is a significant one. But I'll say this, unless there is peace at home, all these things won't matter much. What Nigeria has always needed are statesmen who can leverage these domestic advantages and make sure that our presence is felt on the world stage.
Okay. So comparing CHOGM, Mr. President's comments in London, and his comments in the United States, what message do you have for Nigerians?
It's like night and day.
Okay.
Whereas
night and day.
In a way.
Okay.
Whereas CHOGM was also in its own way, but that comment about youth and so on was badly taken. But here, where we stood on a very good pedestal, where the president spoke forthrightly and advanced our issues, and where the American business community was ready for Nigeria. There's the U.S.-Africa Chamber of Commerce, for instance. This is their day. They are ready. Nigeria is a big enchilada, the big entity in Africa, and there's no question that we've done well for Africa. I think obviously the common trade agreement still needs to be worked on and signed, and I support the government in terms of being careful, before signing. But sign we will eventually. So Nigeria is a leader in Africa, and this reinforces it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Professor Wazirike.
Thank you very much.
Well, my guest on the program today has been Professor Chuju Wazirike, a professor of political comparative sociology, and a former member of the House of Representatives in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and currently a visiting professor to the Nigerian Institute of Legislative Studies, the author of the book, Instrumental Pan-Africanism. As brief as the program appears today, we looked at the ambience and the take-home from Nigeria's president's visit to the United States of America. Thanks for being there on the program. Bye-bye. Welcome to Diplomatic Ties.
And we're doing our best to make it as convenient and easy as possible for prospective students.
What we can do is just support the efforts of West African countries to integrate, to organize a better regional, political and economic integration.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Diplomatic Ties, building friendship and enhancing oneness among nations. Watch Diplomatic Ties on NTA International.